right, good morning. We are going to start a new lesson. We are moving into division. So this is day 73. So let's review a couple skills that are going to be important for us in this lesson. So there's a couple ways we've done this. So if we did 420 divided by 10, what do we do with our decimal when we divide by 10? We move it to the left one time because there's 1 0. When there is no number in a whole number, we know, or a decimal in the whole number, we start there. So if we move one time left, we move it over there, and we end up with 42. So with 100, we're going to move our decimal 2 times to the left. So if we start here, 1, 2, we're going to end up with 16. So now when we're multiplying, we've got 4 times 5 is 20, and then we have 1, 2, 3 more zeros. 1, 2, 3 more zeros. So we end up with 20,000. Another thing, let's think about some fractions. We've done this before, so we want to know what would make this worth 1 whole. So we need to remember that when our numerator, our number on top, and our denominator, our number on bottom, are the same, we get 1 whole. So what over 10 equals 1? Hopefully you said 10. What 100 over what equals 1? Hopefully you said 100. What over 1,000 equals 1? Hopefully you said 1,000. All right, here we go. So today we're moving on to find the quotient. So we've been doing a lot of products lately, which is multiplying, and quotients, now we are dividing. So we're still using multi-digit whole numbers, but today we're going to start off with the multiples of 10. Okay, so some different ways to set up a division problem. So we could set this up with a division bracket. So when we do that, the dividend, right? The dividend, the first number in your division problem is the dividend. It goes inside the bracket. So then this 600 is our divisor. That's what we're dividing our dividend by. So the divisors. So we need to know this vocabulary, our divisor and our dividend. So we know we can set up division problems like that. But we've also been saying all year long that a fraction is also a division problem. So if we're writing this as a fraction, think about how you're going to write that as you say it. 24,000 divided by 600. So you're going to write it just like we say it. So think about this. If we were going to simplify this, what could we divide into both our numerator and our denominator to make it a little bit smaller, to make those numbers more manageable? Let's look at our zeros, because this lesson, we're talking about powers of 10. So we have 2 zeros down here. We have 3 zeros up there. So we're going to divide by 100 to simplify this a little bit. So if we divide by 100, right, we've got 2 zeros, we're going to move it over. So now we have 240, and we move it over, divided by 6. So this changes 240 divided by 6. That's a little bit more manageable. Now let's look at this. We've got to think. We could think about our fact families. We can think about the opposite of division as multiplication. So we need to figure out 6 times what is 240. Well, let's look at this multiplication fact. 6 times what is 24? Hopefully you're thinking 4, and then we have an extra 0. So when we divide this, we end up with 40. Okay, how do we check things? How do we check division problems to make sure they're correct? We multiply. So when we take 600, because that's our divisor, that's what we started with, by what we ended up with, our quotient, we should end up back with our dividend. So if you multiply 600 times 40, you should end back up with 24,000. Okay, so we always got to plug it back into the original answer. So I want you on your whiteboard to solve this, turn this into a fraction, simplify it, and then come up with a quotient. So go ahead and pause the video, do that whiteboard problem, and then come back to me when you're ready. Okay, hopefully you set it up like this, 180,000 divided by 9,000. So look, we've got 3 zeros here. We have at least 3. We've got more on top. We've got 4, but we can divide by 1,000. So when we divide by 1,000, those zeros are going away. Divide by 1,000, there's 3 zeros. 1, 2, 3, we end up with 9. 1, 2, 3, we end up with 180. So then when we look, 180 divided by 9, we can look at the math fact. 18 divided by 9 is 2, and we have 1 0 left. So we get 20. So when we go back and check, 9,000 times 20 is going to give you 180,000. Okay, so if we set this up, it could look like this with our division bracket, with our dividend and our divisor, and your answer is your quotient. We can also write it as a fraction. So when we simplify it, we're going to divide it. Does this change its value, or does it still have the same value? Right? It's an equivalent fraction. Equivalent fraction has the same value. So we have 2 zeros here. We can divide by 100 to get 4. We can divide this by 100 to get 3,600. So let's look at this math fact. 36 and 4, and then we have 2 zeros. So 4 times 9, or 30 divided by 4, gives you 9. And then we have 2 extra zeros. So we get a quotient of 900. So if we go back and do 400 times 900 to check, we're going to get 360,000. So make sure you get that in your notes. And you can always pause if I'm going too fast. Okay, you try this one. 4 million, it's a big number, guys. 4,800,000 divided by 8,000. So set it up like a fraction. Figure out what you're going to divide by it to simplify and come up with a quotient. Okay, pause the video. Okay, welcome back. Here we go. Are you ready? First, you have to set the problem up correctly. 4,800,000 divided by 8,000. We have 3 zeros down here, so we're going to divide by 1,000. So we get our divisor as a single digit. That's what we're trying to do, make our divisor as small as we can. Because now we know 48 divided by 8 is 6, and then we have these 2 zeros. So we get 600. Okay, let's look at this table right here. Simple math facts. 45 divided by 9. You need to fill this in your math notes. 45 divided by 9, 5. Now we're still looking here. 450 divided by 9. Well, we're still doing our 45 divided by 9, but now we've got another 0. So what's our answer going to be? That's right, 50. Then we move on. See, 45 divided by 9. We still have a 5, but now we have 2 zeros, 500. Now we have 3 zeros, 5,000. Now we have 4 zeros, 50,000. You noticing anything? Let's look at the next chart. 42,000 divided by 6. Well, think about 42 divided by 6, and then we have 3 zeros. And we end up with 7,000. Now here, It's a little bit tricky because we've got to think, well, we've got this 0 here, and we've got 3 zeros here. We're going to end up with 700. So now if we have 2 zeros, are you seeing a pattern? It's going to get 70. Now they both have 3 zeros, the 42,000 and the 6,000. So now we're just going to end up with 7. We're going to explore this a little bit in the next problem. So 32 divided by 8 is 4. 320 divided by 8 is 40. 320 divided by 80, back to 4. 3,200 divided by 80, we're back to 40. And here we're going to be back to 4. So hopefully you're seeing some patterns, you're noticing some things in these tables because we're going to explore this in the next slide. Make sure you have that all in your math notebook. Okay, so if we set this up, we can set it up with our division bracket. We've got our dividend and our divisor, but we do not have to set it up, right, as that. We could divide it like this. But here we go. Here's the problem. We have not learned how to divide quite yet with a 2-digit divisor. We're getting there. We're just not quite there yet. But what do we know about this 30? We can cancel out some zeros. So our goal is to get our divisor, if we could get it into a single digit, that would be awesome. But we have to think about keeping the same value. So if there is 1 0 in our divisor and we get rid of it, we have to get rid of exactly 1 0 in our dividend. You have to be equal or else you're going to change the value. It's not going to have the same worth. So we need to make sure when we cross off zeros, we're doing it equally. The same in the divisor as we do in the dividend. So now this is a division problem we can manage. We already know we can do 3 doesn't go into 2, but we know that it goes into 27. So we can do this problem, right? So 3 goes into 27 9 times. We just said it doesn't go in here, but it goes in 9. And we have an extra 0, so we end up with 90 as our quotient. So we can check that. 90 times 30, we're going to end up with 2,700. Okay, so I want you guys to try this out. Try it with canceling your zeros. Make sure you're equal on both sides. The same amount of zeros as you get rid of in the divisor, you have to get rid of in the dividend. Pause the video. Go ahead and try that. We'll come back together in just a second. Okay, go ahead and unpause. Let's set this up. So when we set it up with our brackets, it's easy to see our divisor. We have 2 zeros that we want to get rid of in our divisor. So let's get rid of 2 in our divisor, and to keep it equal, we have to get it 2 in our dividend. The reason we can't get rid of these, all 3 of these, is because there's not 3 over here to get rid of. We have to stay equal. Since I only have 2 over in our divisor, we can only get rid of 2 in the dividend. So now we can do 4 goes into 28. It can't go into 2. But it's going to go into 28 7 times, and then we have 1 extra 0, 70. So our quotient is 70. 280 divided by 4 is 70. So now if we check, 400 times 70 is going to give us 28,000. Because 4 times 7 is 28, and then we have 1, 2, 3 zeros. 1, 2, 3 zeros. Count them up. Okay, so think about this, the trick of crossing off the zeros. Why does that work? Well, it works because you're keeping the value the same. It's the same thing as simplifying a fraction. Okay? So we can set these up. I'll go ahead and let you pause the video. Try number 2. Okay, so let's set this up. Well, let's ask ourselves, there's 1 0 here. Let me change colors. There's 1 0 here we can get rid of. So we're going to get rid of 1 0 in our 15,000. 15 divided by 3 is 5. And then we have 2 zeros. So 500. So hopefully you got 500 for that first one. So try number 3. Go ahead and pause the video, and then we'll come back. Okay, here we go. We can get rid of 1 0 in the divisor, 1 0 in the dividend. 22 divided by 11 is 2, and then we have 1 extra 0, 20. Okay, so try number 4. Pause your video. Okay, unpause. Let's look here. We can get rid of 1, 2, 3 zeros in the divisor, so we'll get rid of 1, 2, 3 zeros in the dividend. 81 divided by 9 is 9, and then we just have 1 0 left over, 90. All right, that is our lesson for the day. I hope you guys are doing well, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.